And our next presentation is going to be from one of our hugely successful patient stories. Some of you may be too young to remember Billy Best. Billy Best was a teenager who was being given chemotherapy by force of government. And he decided that that was not for him, grabbed his skateboard backpack, baseball cap, jumped on a bus, and got out of town. That was, what, 15 years ago? 18 years ago.
19 years ago.
Almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And not only did he survive, he got out soon enough for the conventional treatments killed him, but he's still with us today.
What's that?
And I want to introduce Billy Best to tell you his story.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Billy Best. It's great to be here. Really great to be here. Being, as the doctors, when I was 16, told me that I'd be dead in 2 years if I didn't do what they said. But I'll tell you all about that. I'd love to. It's happened when I was 16 years old, and everything was fine until I had a lump on my neck, and I went to the hospital, and their biopsy showed that it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. When I came home from the hospital that day, my family was crying, and I told them, you know, it's okay. You know, the doctor said it's easily treatable. We can take care of this. We see it a lot. But they weren't crying for me. They were crying for my aunt, and it was because she had been battling breast cancer, and she died at home while receiving chemotherapy treatment. And she was my reference as to what happens when you are diagnosed with cancer and you begin treatment. So from the beginning of my journey with cancer, I had no faith in conventional treatments. I didn't believe they would work for me, and I think that was a big part of what led me to sort of run away and decide to die from cancer instead of chemotherapy. So at 16, I had been receiving I received 5 treatments. In that time, I watched my health deteriorate. I saw the other children at Dana-Farber who were receiving chemotherapy just living a quality of life that I did not want to live. And like Frank said, I left my parents a note saying, I love you guys, and I'm really sorry, but I have to leave. I have to run away. There was something in my heart that just said, go. And I didn't know anything about alternative medicine. I didn't know there were any people out there, who had other kinds of options. But like I said, I would be okay with letting the cancer kill me, and not the chemotherapy. So I took my skateboard. I got on a Greyhound bus. I made it to Texas, Houston, Texas. It was after about 10 days of being gone that I actually saw my mother on TV crying. They had no success with a runaway, from the police. The police couldn't do anything. But when someone suggested, your kid has cancer, maybe you should talk to the media, they might get that out there. Well, they picked it up right away. Associated Press ran a story, and after that, it was every news channel called. It was on the front page of the paper, coast to coast. It was everywhere. And I saw it as I made it to Texas, but I wanted to get to California. So that plan changed. A bald teenager with a skateboard probably won't get too far if everyone's looking for him. So I pulled down the hat, pulled up the hood, and kind of hid out. I hid out for a couple of weeks, and in that time, something great happened. People who saw the story of a kid who didn't want chemo took time to write letters or make phone calls and share their experiences with my family. Said, good for him, because the doctors don't know everything. There's other stuff out there and they can't tell you about it. So over the next couple weeks, my parents were looking at this information, and I called home and they told me, Billy, you don't have to do chemo if you come home. We found out there's other things you can do, so just come home. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to die, but I just don't want to do chemo. So when I came home, they were like pulling up to the house. They're like, there's something we didn't really tell you. And it was that like every news channel was camped out on the front lawn. So I'm like, keep going, keep going. So I, again, had to kind of, it took a while to get back into a normal routine. But in that time, I started looking over all these letters that people sent. And a lot of them made sense to me. I started organizing them in different stacks. The biggest stack, which was growing, was about diet. What you eat has an effect on your health. And a lot of them said the same things. The ones that I was reading was eliminate red meat, dairy, sugar, white flour from your diet. Try to get organics. If you can't get organics, get local. Eat the most amount, eat foods that are highest in nutrition, that take the least amount of your body's energy to process. So with this, very, small understanding of diet, I began eating that way. My mom was cooking this way for me. The next stack that was just growing was talking about a tea called Essiac tea. And it was from all different people all over the place. So we kept that one in. I said, well, this is something. So if I put in good nutrition, that's good. If I eliminate the bad stuff, that's good. But these are things that everyone can do to prevent cancer or just be well. And but I have a condition. I have a cancer that's growing. The tests were showing that the cancer grew while I was gone. And I needed to do something else. And I read through more of the information, and I found another treatment, one from Canada, that was called 714X. And I also spoke to a man who was using it. And I believed that that was something that would be good for me. I had faith that by using this treatment, I would, overcome my cancer. And it was not, as easy as taking the tea or changing your diet. I had to go to Canada and learn how to give myself an injection into my lymph nodes, which, I shared this all with my doctors. They said, you're what? Like, you're gonna do what? You're gonna kill yourself if you inject yourself here. You're gonna hit your femoral artery and bleed out. If you don't, you're still gonna die because the cancer is gonna come, and unless you do chemo, radiation, and surgery, you'll be dead in 2 years. So after a meeting with all the heads of the hospital, the head of oncology, the head of radiology, the Department of Social Work, Psychology, the head of the hospital, head of public relations. They had a meeting that they pretty much just listed every single way that I would die. Like physically, what would happen? You're gonna swell. You're gonna block vital organs, or you're gonna bleed to death internally. This, that. And the only hope you have is to come back to us. And now we're gonna have to start over because you left your treatment. And it was kind of clear in their face that they were desperate to get me to come back. And we said, you know what, we're gonna take a little time off. In that time, I went with my father up to Canada and learned how to do the injections. In that time, they reported my parents to the Department of Social Services as unfit because they weren't looking after my best interest. At this time now, I'm 17 years old, and that's getting pretty close to being an adult. And I think, I read in a newspaper article that probably the reasoning they used was, okay, well, if this kid is mature enough to escape Boston and make it all the way to Texas and spend a month on the road and make the decision to come home, maybe he's able to make decisions regarding his own health. So fortunately, they didn't pursue that. Now I had my cancer plan that I had created for myself. My diet was changed. I was taking my tea every day. And I was giving myself these shots every morning. And I can go into detail about the shots, and I don't want to take that time right now, but it was great. It was great. I felt empowered. I was taking an active part in my own healing process. I was doing something that I believed would work. I believed that I understand it's going to do this. It's going to make my body it's going to give my body the ability to fight the cancer on its own, like it's designed to do. I started looking at maybe what caused me to develop cancer. When they said it's genetic and there's nothing, diet doesn't have any effect, it's just genetic. Some people get cancer. And I started thinking, well, I was in a trauma where my arm was almost taken off. It was a very bad break, and it was 2 years of surgery to fix it. And all the drugs that go on, the anesthesia and all the pain pills, maybe that had something to do with it. They're like, no, 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 that is not, none of that has anything to do with cancer. So it was great. I mean, I was in a really good place, and after 2 months of being on the treatments, I went back to Dana-Farber for testing, and there was no cancer. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.